Hey everybody, welcome to Fraction Focus, episode number 31, the show where we obsess about everything from geek culture to nerd news, along with random topics for discussion. I'm one of your hosts, Ben Gordon, coming in live from the great state of Nebraska for the first time ever, for the 31st time, Mr. Matt Swinehart. Matt, how you doing?
I am good. I'm good.
Cool.
Glad we're back to doing this.
It's been a little bit dry area for at least news that we feel worthy to talk about.
Yeah.
We could force it, and we could just pull some stuff and try to stretch it into 10 to 15 minute segments, but
could have done some fake news, but
that's what we should just change our show to, is just fake news and just come up with as much fake bullshit as we can and see how much we can draw that out. We could get a big following around that, I bet
we could, at least one segment.
Let's see how much damage we could do to the population news. I mean, we could percolate a little bit to at least move that tangential line to destroy at least some lives, right?
Yeah, we'll see if we can start collecting cease and desist notifications from each one of the studios.
If you haven't got at least one of those a year, then you're not trying very hard, okay? You gotta fail to succeed. Well, we got some cool stuff now that we can talk about, some of the stuff that's built up. Let's talk about the first thing. Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classic pre-orders have already gone up. And, they're already sold out. And it's gone.
Yeah.
I know people have been talking about, we know how difficult it was to get an NES Classic, and they are going to actually do some pre-orders. Nintendo said they're going to put out substantially more of this one. We all know it's fucking bullshit. It's still going to be as hard as hell to get one. They're not going to put out enough.
And they're not going to put them out for as long either. So
yeah, exactly. But, I mean, and, you know, people have been saying, too, if you're interested in this, keep an eye out for all these places for pre-orders whenever it happens. Well, sure enough, it's already come to fruition where you've had multiple places from Amazon to Best Buy. And it basically all happened, what was it, Sunday night? I think it was.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or in the morning or whatever it was. So within minutes, all the shit was fucking gone.
Yeah.
Which
it was like when they released the... What is it, Pepsi Perfect on the anniversary of Back to the Future.
I forgot about that, yeah.
And that shit was just gone in like 8 minutes. Mm-hmm. I wanted one of those so bad. I didn't really want to pay $60 for it, but if I could have found one, I'd have paid $60 for it.
Now, I don't think we're complaining about this by any means because we expected this to happen. Boy, I got to remember to turn off my Do Not Disturbs.
I just turned mine on.
We knew this was going to happen. If we wanted it that bad, we probably would have set up some kind of pre-order. I guess some people have even been putting in bots that will actually go out and keep checking for you. Some people get mad at that, but in my opinion, why? If the ability to do that is out there and they want it more than you do, then what are you worried about? I mean, you can still go to the store and camp out and get one.
That's technology.
Yeah, exactly. They're still going to be in stores. This is just an initial round of pre-orders because, to my knowledge, the NES Classic didn't even do the pre-orders, right? They just had the stores, and a lot of people were complaining about that, the fact that they didn't do pre-orders.
Yeah. And then it was at the store's discretion as to how many they were going to sell per person.
Sure. Yep. Which some didn't. I actually remember hearing stories about, because I went to several lines for that NES Classic, and I remember hearing a couple talk about they were third in line at a Toys R Us. People were camped out overnight, and the first guy in line bought all 17 that the store got, and the store allowed that. Now, how that guy made it out there without getting his ass kicked, or people just shaming that store, I have no idea, but that blows my mind. They've also shown off recently some of the additional features that are going to be in the Super NES Classic. Obviously, they're going to have the save states, which they made into a big, long... Of course, we expect they're going to have save states. It's just an emulator. You better have fucking save states. 2 controllers this time. Obviously, we've known that for a while. Thank frickin' God. That's awesome. Full-size Super NES. That's actually probably the biggest thing to me that draws me in is getting the actual size of the actual controllers that are perfect remakes of the stuff that we grew up with. That, to me, is the biggest reason to get it. But in addition to the stuff we're used to, the interface looks similar to the NES Classic. But, you know, kind of Super NES motif. You can have the different filters on it, whether it's the 4x3, the CRT mode. You can set different frames for the background, find whatever. I thought this was interesting, though. In addition to the save states, they're going to have, like, you can rewind and fast forward a certain amount of gameplay that you've done. So, like, if you died, you can rewind, like, 10 seconds back to before and then pick up from there. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. The little sands of time.
Yeah, exactly. There. That's what was popping through my head, too, but I didn't know if we're kind of past the demographic for that age group or people even know what the hell that is anymore. But yes, that was going through my head. This thing looks cool as hell, too.
How many games are they releasing on this one?
There
Is it
are
more
going
than
to
the 30?
Is it 31? You'd think it'd be right on the box. I'm looking at the box.
I thought it was going to be a little bit more than the NES when they put it out. So
how many were on the NES Classic? Was it 30?
I think 30, 20 or 30.
NES Classic.
Isn't this one going to have like games that were previously not released? Wasn't
Just
that
one.
the thing?
Only one game, and that is Star Fox 2.
Yeah.
Which has made it out onto the internets in the emulation world, but this is the first time it has ever been officially released. Here we go. No, there's only going to be 20 games. 20
okay.
plus Star Fox, so 21 games.
Okay.
Yep.
So the original must have had 20 as well then.
No, the NES Classic had 30.
Did it have 30?
Yeah, so less games, but let's be honest, the Super NES games are much bigger in scale. And I mean, if you even look at, in fact, let's pull up the list of games. Super Mario World, The Legend of Zelda, Super Metroid, Donkey Kong, Super Castlevania 4, Mega Man X, Final Fantasy 3. This is way more hours of gameplay. And that's just a handful of games that I talked about compared to the NES Classic. Because don't get me wrong, NES Classic games are awesome. They're not going to, beyond Final Fantasy, I think was in that one, the most of those, like you can play through Super Mario Brothers in, an hour?
Yeah.
So you get, I mean, there's Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars, Contra 3, Secret of Mana, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Earthbound. Boy, this is an RPG-heavy collection, which I'm not complaining. The Super Nintendo was a heavy RPG system, but Mega Man X.
But you're also getting Street Fighter 2 and all those other games.
I mean, every one of these games, hell yeah. This is so freaking cool. Do you see yourself getting a Super NES Classic? I've got an NES Classic, and I don't know if I even see myself.
I don't see myself getting a Super. I mean, I'm just like with the NES. I mean, I have two NESs, original ones, and tons of games for it. So there wasn't a huge draw. Now there was a draw for me to go back and play it, but not a huge draw to go out and spend the extra money.
Yeah, when you already have it, it's kind of interesting. I was talking with some people a few weeks ago about this, and we're like, no, can't rationalize going to get this. Now, I said that about the NES Classic. I said that about the Switch. So I don't know. But the logic being that I don't really see myself having a reason to go out and get this. But do you still kind of feel a little bit of a tug inside you where, like, this would be kind of cool? Why is that we kind of have this desire to have something like this when
nostalgia.
We don't really...
This is one of them that I never owned, though. This was always a friend's console.
Oh, you never had a Super Nintendo? Man.
I never owned the Super Nintendo, so... my sister had one, and I'd go over to her house all the time and play it, but I just never had it. I mean, this was when I went over to the Sega Genesis.
Oh, you poor thing.
Because I remember I had a friend that had a Sega Genesis, and I was playing that all the time, Ultra Beast and Mortal Kombat and all those Sega Genesis games, Sonic the Hedgehog. So
it's like you left Target to go over to Kmart.
And slow down. But yes. So yeah, it was kind of where I teared off. What was the one after that? Was what, the GameCube or the 64?
No, the
64 was next.
Yeah, 64 is the next one. There's some question as to whether or not they're going to do a Nintendo 64 Classic. I don't see why not. I know that emulation, when it starts to get into the 3D realm, gets much more tricky. There's even games to this day in the Nintendo 64, even if you have a top-of-the-line computer, that still have trouble running that stuff because it's not as simple as just, well, this computer's powerful, it should be able to run it. Well, that's not really the way it works, especially when you start getting...
it's not the right architecture.
Exactly.
That's
so it'll be interesting to see if they... And if you're going to reissue a Nintendo 64 Classic Edition, I would think that the most expensive part is going to actually be the fucking controller.
Yeah,
and that
those were quite elaborate.
Yes, and one of the biggest drawing points of the 64 was the multiplayer aspect. So unless you're going to have 4 controllers...
And rumble packs.
Yeah.
And that was like the introduction of rumble packs to me.
That's true, but at least that was an add-on. So if they dissuaded against the rumble pack, everybody, I think, would forgive them. But one of the biggest parts about that, like Mario Kart 64, what does that scream in your head? 4-player. There's no way you're going to put 4 controllers in the box of something like this, and even if you did, it's going to be more expensive than the components of the processor that run. You know what I mean? So I'm curious to see if they go that route, but I'm not wishing that they don't. I just think get your fucking virtual console up and running on the goddamn Switch where everybody wants it.
My advice: go to your local game store and buy you a GameCube if you want to play GameCube games.
Yeah.
Or N64 games. Because they have tons of them. I go to Gamers here in Omaha.
Yep.
And they have tons of them back there in cellophane waiting for people to buy them. So.
Yep. That is a very...
Do it now. Because they'll cost you twice as much if Nintendo even hints at the fact that they're going to make an emulator.
Yeah, that's true.
Classic version. That's
true. Well, for those of you watching, let us know. Did you square away a pre-order? You sick son of a bitch. You got one and we didn't. Like we didn't even try. But congratulations if you already got one. That's awesome. And if you can think of a good reason that we didn't think of why everybody should have this, please let us know in the comments below.